$5. The notification from my banking app glowed mockingly on my phone screen. I blinked hard, thinking maybe my medication was playing tricks with my vision again. But no, there it was, clear as day, transfer received from Ryan Matthews, $5. I'm Adriana, and my little brother Ryan has been helping me with medical expenses for the past 3 years. Every month, without fail, he'd send $1,500. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. That's the kind of person Ryan is, or at least, the kind of person he was before Jessica came into his life. My fingers hovered over the phone's keypad. The rational part of me said to wait, to not jump to conclusions. But when you're dealing with chronic illness and mounting bills, rationality tends to take a backseat to survival instincts. I hit the call button. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. Adriana! What perfect timing! Jessica's voice dripped with artificial sweetness. Ryan's in the shower. Can I help? Jessica, hi. There seems to be a mistake with this month's transfer. Oh. What kind of mistake? I gripped the phone tighter. Instead of the usual amount, there's only $5. Right. Isn't it cute? Ryan wanted to send you a symbolic gesture of support this month. You know, showing that even small amounts matter. My stomach clenched. Symbolic gesture? Well, we've been talking about financial responsibility lately. Ryan's working so hard, and with the new house and everything. She paused, letting the implications hang in the air. We thought it might be time for you to stand on your own feet a bit more. You understand, right? The room started spinning slightly. I pressed my free hand against the kitchen counter to steady myself. I need to speak with Ryan. He's really busy today. Board meeting, client lunch, you know how it is. But I'll tell him you called. Her voice brightened. Oh, and while I have you, could you possibly help me with the catering for our housewarming party next weekend? Your organizational skills are just amazing. I stared at the pile of medical bills on my counter, at the prescription bottles lined up like silent sentinels. I don't think I can. Perfect. I'll email you the details. You're such a dear. The line went dead before I could respond. My phone buzzed again, another notification. For a moment, I hoped it was Ryan, explaining this was all a mistake. Instead, it was a photo from Jessica's social media, her perfectly manicured hand holding up a shopping bag from some luxury boutique. Captioned, treating myself. #blessed, #living my best life. The timestamp showed it was posted just hours after Ryan's $5 transfer. I slumped into a kitchen chair, my hands shaking. 3 years ago, when my condition first manifested, Ryan had been my rock. He'd promised to help until I got back on my feet, understanding that working full-time wasn't possible during treatment. But since marrying Jessica 8 months ago, something had changed. The warm, caring brother who'd sit with me during hospital stays was becoming a stranger, shaped by Jessica's subtle manipulations. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Jessica, by the way, could you also handle the party favors? Nothing too cheap, we're having some very important people over. I know you'll figure something out. Face blowing a kiss. I set the phone face down on the table and closed my eyes. The familiar burn of bile rose in my throat, but this time it wasn't from my medication. For 3 years, I'd watched Jessica slowly sink her claws into my brother, transforming him from my protector into her puppet. And now, with this $5 insult, something inside me snapped. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But as I opened my eyes and reached for my laptop, I wasn't thinking about temperature. I was thinking about justice. Their new house loomed before me like a monument to everything I couldn't provide for myself. 3 stories of pristine architecture, complete with perfectly manicured lawns and a circular driveway where Jessica's brand new Mercedes sat gleaming in the afternoon sun. I clutched my housewarming gift, a handmade photo album chronicling Ryan's life before Jessica, and pressed the doorbell. The chimes echoed inside, followed by the click of heels on hardwood. Adriana! Jessica swung the door open, champagne glass in hand. You're early. The party starts at 2. Oh, sweetie, I texted everyone this morning. We pushed it to 4. She took a long sip, her eyes gleaming over the rim of her glass. But since you're here, you can help set up. The foyer smelled of fresh paint and expensive candles. Jessica's touch was everywhere, crystal vases, abstract art, and not a single family photo in sight. She led me to the kitchen, where boxes of catering supplies covered every surface. Ryan's still at work? I asked, setting down my gift. Board meeting. He's so dedicated lately. Sometimes I barely see him. Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. Unlike some people who have all the time in the world. I bit back a response and started unpacking boxes. My hands trembled slightly, a new symptom I'd been trying to ignore. Jessica noticed. Oh dear, are you sure you should be helping? We wouldn't want you to drop anything expensive. I'm fine. If you say so. She wandered to the window, phone in hand. Though I suppose if anything breaks, Ryan can just replace it. He's so generous that way. The implied dig about the $5 transfer hung between us. I focused on arranging appetizers, trying to steady my shaking hands. Speaking of Ryan's generosity, Jessica continued, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. It's just. Well, we have so many expenses now. The mortgage, my car payments, our social obligations. And Ryan works so hard. I understand, I said, though my throat felt tight. I'm looking for work. Are you? How wonderful. Her tone dripped with false enthusiasm. Though who would hire? I mean, with your condition. A text notification chimed. Jessica's face lit up as she checked her phone, fingers flying across the screen. For a moment, her mask slipped. And I caught a glimpse of something in her expression, a flash of genuine emotion that seemed out of place with her carefully curated persona. Good news? I asked. She startled, almost dropping her phone. Just work stuff. Nothing interesting. She tapped the device away too quickly, her cheeks flushed. Let's check the dining room. The florist delivered the wrong shade of roses, and I simply can't have that. As we moved through the house, Jessica rattled off a list of tasks she needed me to complete before guests arrived. Each request came with a subtle reminder of Ryan's generosity or my dependence. By the time we reached the master bedroom, where she insisted I help her choose between 3 nearly identical designer dresses, my hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. Are you all right? She asked, not bothering to mask her irritation. The guests will be here soon, and I need. Jessica? Ryan's voice called from downstairs. I'm home early. Jessica froze, her expression shifting so quickly it was almost comical. Coming, darling. She turned to me, her voice dropping to a whisper. Pull yourself together before you come down. And Adriana? Let's keep our little chat about finances between us. Ryan has enough stress without worrying about. Well, you know. She disappeared in a cloud of expensive perfume, leaving me alone in her pristine bedroom. On her vanity, her phone lit up with another notification. The preview message caught my eye before the screen went dark. Miss you already. Same time next week? I stared at the dark screen, my hands finally steady. In that moment, watching Jessica coo over my brother downstairs, something crystallized inside me. The trembling in my hands wasn't just my condition, it was rage, pure and clarifying. I pulled out my own phone and opened my banking app. The $5 transfer still mocked me, but now it felt less like an insult and more like a declaration of war. The cafe was nearly empty when Jessica swept in, designer handbag swinging, 40 minutes late for the lunch she'd insisted on. My untouched water glass had left a ring of condensation on the table, another circle. Like the ones under my eyes from nights spent calculating how to stretch my savings. Sorry, I'm late. The gym was simply divine today. She slid into the seat across from me, not looking sorry at all. You should try it sometime. Exercise is so good for whatever it is you have. You wanted to discuss something about Ryan? Yes, about that. She leaned forward, lowering her voice conspiratorially. I need you to convince him to invest in this amazing opportunity. It's completely legitimate, but he's being so stubborn about it. What kind of opportunity? Just a small business venture. Only $50,000 to get started. She waved her hand dismissively. Mark says. Mark? Jessica's perfectly lined lips tightened for a fraction of a second. My financial advisor. Anyway, Ryan's being ridiculous about it. But he always listens to his big sister. The waiter approached, and Jessica ordered a $60 salad. I chose soup, calculating the cost against my dwindling account balance. Speaking of finances, Jessica continued, I need to borrow $2,000. Just until next week. I nearly choked on my water. What? Well, since Ryan's being difficult about the investment, I had to use my emergency fund for something else. And I have this absolutely crucial appointment on Thursday. Jessica, I can barely afford my medication. Oh, please. Her voice took on a sharp edge. We both know you're not as helpless as you pretend to be. Ryan told me about your trust fund. The trust fund that had been depleted 3 years ago, paying for experimental treatments. The trust fund Ryan apparently still thought I had. There is no trust fund anymore. Really? Jessica's perfectly shaped eyebrows arched. That's not what Mark found when he looked into your finances. The implications of that statement hit me like a physical blow. She'd been investigating me? I need to use the restroom, I managed, standing up too quickly. The room swayed slightly. I'd skipped my morning medication to afford this lunch. In the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face, trying to steady myself. When I looked up, Jessica was behind me, checking her makeup in the mirror. You know, she said, reapplying her lipstick, Ryan's been asking questions lately. About your condition, about the treatments. It would be a shame if he started to doubt the severity of your illness. Are you threatening me? Of course not, darling. She capped her lipstick with a sharp click. I'm simply suggesting a mutually beneficial arrangement. You help me with this small favor, and I'll make sure Ryan never questions sending you money again. My phone buzzed, a notification from my banking app. Another transfer from Ryan, $20 this time, with a message attached. For lunch with Jess. Love you, sis. Something snapped inside me. I turned to face her fully. Does Ryan know you're sleeping with Mark? The lipstick clattered into the sink. For a moment, Jessica's mask slipped completely, revealing raw panic beneath. Then her features rearranged themselves into cold fury. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? The texts, the mysterious appointments, the sudden need for money Ryan can't know about? She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging in. Listen carefully. If you breathe a word of your delusional theories to Ryan, I'll make sure he never speaks to you again. Who do you think he'll believe? His successful, loving wife, or his chronically ill sister who's been lying about her trust fund? Let go of me. I've worked too hard to let you ruin everything. Her grip tightened. Ryan's mine now. The sooner you accept that, the better. I yanked my arm free, my heart pounding. This isn't over. Oh, but it is. She picked up her lipstick, her hands steady again. By the way, I took the liberty of canceling your lunch order. Wouldn't want you spending Ryan's $20 too recklessly. She sauntered out, leaving me alone with my reflection and the growing certainty that this wasn't just about money anymore. This was war, and Jessica had just made her biggest mistake. She'd shown me her weakness. I pulled out my phone and opened my browser. Time to find out exactly who Mark was and what kind of investment opportunity they were planning together. 3 days of digging through social media and financial records had left me exhausted. But what I found made my hands shake worse than any medication side effect. Mark wasn't just Jessica's financial advisor, he was her ex-boyfriend and CEO of a company that didn't exist 6 months ago. My laptop screen glowed with their paper trail, wire transfers, shell companies, and a pattern too deliberate to be coincidence. Ryan's money, my medical support, was being funneled into their fake investment scheme. A knock at my door made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Ryan shifting nervously on my welcome mat. "Hey, sis." He looked tired, his usual confident smile replaced by something more fragile. "Can we talk?" I closed my laptop and let him in, trying to hide my trembling hands in my sweater pockets. He paced my small living room, running his fingers through his disheveled hair. "Jessica says you've been difficult lately." "Does she?" "She thinks you're jealous of our success." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "That you're making up stories because you resent her." My throat tightened. "What stories?" "About her spending, about some guy named Mark." He finally looked at me, his expression pained. "She showed me your texts, Adriana. The ones threatening to ruin her if she didn't give you more money." "What texts?" Ryan pulled out his phone, showing me messages I'd never sent, each one more damning than the last. They were perfect forgeries, using phrases I would use, referencing conversations that had actually happened, but twisted into weapons. "I didn't write these." "Then who did?" His voice cracked. "Because they came from your number." My mind raced. Jessica must have cloned my phone during lunch, when I'd left it on the table to use the restroom. The realization made me feel sick. "Ryan, listen to me. Jessica and Mark." "Stop." He stood up abruptly. "Just stop. I know things have been hard since your diagnosis, but this has to end. Jessica suggested we help you get professional help." "Professional help?" The room seemed to tilt. "You think I'm crazy?" "I think you're struggling." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "We found a really good facility. They specialize in cases like yours, where illness and financial stress create delusions." My legs gave out, and I sank onto the couch. "She's convinced you I'm insane." "She's trying to help." "We both are." He set the envelope on my coffee table. "The facility has an opening next week. Jessica already handled the paperwork. All you have to do is sign." I stared at the envelope, understanding flooding through me. If I was institutionalized, there would be no one to expose their scheme. No one to protect Ryan. And if I refuse? His face hardened. "Then the support stops. Completely. Jessica's right, enabling you isn't helping anymore." I reached for the envelope with shaking hands, not trusting myself to speak. Inside was a thick packet of admission forms for a voluntary stay at a psychiatric facility. At the bottom of each page was Jessica's neat signature as the responsible party. "I need time to think about this." "You have until Friday." He moved toward the door, then paused. "I love you, Adriana. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." After he left, I sat in silence, holding the admission papers. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, TikTok. "Choose wisely." Face blowing a kiss. I looked at my laptop, where proof of their fraud waited in carefully documented files. Then at the admission papers, which would strip me of all credibility if I signed them. Jessica had outmaneuvered me perfectly. Either I committed myself to an institution, or I lost Ryan forever. But as I sat there, another notification lit up my screen. An email from a private investigator I'd contacted, with a subject line that made my heart race. Found something: Mark's real identity and criminal record. My hands stopped shaking. Jessica thought she had backed me into a corner, but she'd forgotten something crucial: cornered animals fight back the hardest. I opened the email, ready to learn exactly what kind of man my brother's wife was really involved with. Mark's real name was Marcus Reeves, 3-time felon with outstanding warrants in 2 states for investment fraud. The private investigator's report detailed a pattern: charm wealthy Marks, orchestrate elaborate schemes, vanish with the money. And now he had his hooks in my brother's wife and their savings. I printed everything, hands steady for the first time in days. The deadline Jessica gave me for signing the psychiatric facility papers was tomorrow, but I had other plans. My phone rang. Jessica. Change of plans, she said without preamble. I need you to come to the house. Now. I'm busy. Either you come now, or I call Ryan and tell him you're having another episode. Your choice. 20 minutes later, I pulled into their circular driveway. Jessica opened the door before I could knock, perfectly coiffed despite the late hour. In here. She led me to their home office, where Mark sat behind Ryan's desk like he owned it. Hello, Adriana. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Jessica tells me you've been asking questions about me. I remained standing, the folder of evidence heavy in my bag. Just getting to know my sister-in-laws. Financial advisor. Cut the act. Jessica perched on the desk next to Mark. We know you hired someone to investigate us. Sloppy work, Mark added. Your investigator wasn't nearly as discreet as he thought. Neither were you. I pulled out the folder. Marcus Reeves. Convicted of fraud in 2018. Released early for good behavior in 2021. Started fresh with a new name, but kept the same old habits. The color drained from Jessica's face. Mark's smile turned predatory. Impressive research. But ultimately pointless. He opened Ryan's laptop. You see, while you were digging into my past, I was arranging your future. He turned the screen toward me. On it was my medical records, my financial history, and dozens of fabricated documents suggesting I'd been embezzling from Ryan for years. One click, Mark said, and these go to every financial institution your brother works with. His reputation would be ruined. His career destroyed. All because his unstable sister took advantage of his generosity. You're bluffing. Am I? He clicked something, and my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank, account frozen pending fraud investigation. That's just a taste, Jessica said. Sign the facility papers, and this all goes away. Ryan never has to know how his sister nearly destroyed him. My vision blurred at the edges. The familiar sensation of an oncoming episode crept in, racing heart, trembling limbs. But underneath the physical symptoms, something else was building. Something that felt like clarity. You know what's interesting about fraud investigations? I steadied myself against a bookshelf. They tend to uncover everything, including offshore accounts, shell companies, and conspiracies between ex-cons and their accomplices. Is that a threat? Mark stood. It's a fact. Just like the fact that I forwarded everything I found to Ryan's private email an hour ago. Time delayed. Unless I stop it, he'll wake up tomorrow to the complete truth about both of you. Jessica lunged for my bag, but I stepped back. Don't bother. The evidence isn't in there. But these are. I pulled out the facility admission papers and ripped them in half. I'm done being your victim. You're making a mistake, Mark growled. No, you made the mistake. You thought my illness made me weak. But living with chronic pain taught me something. There's a difference between hurting and being broken. I moved toward the door. I'm not broken. And I'm not letting you break my brother. If you walk out that door, Jessica called after me, you'll never see Ryan again. I turned back one last time. Maybe. But at least he'll be free of you. In my car, my phone buzzed again. A text from Ryan, got your email. What evidence? Call me ASAP. I started the engine, my hands shaking not from weakness now, but from determination. The time for hiding was over. Tomorrow, everything would change. Ryan's text messages flooded my phone as I pulled into the hospital parking lot. The stress had triggered another episode, worse than usual. My vision blurred, hands trembling so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. But I couldn't stop now, not when I was so close to exposing everything. Where are you? Ryan's voice crackled through my phone's speaker. These documents. Is this real? All of it. I pressed my forehead against the cool steering wheel, willing the dizziness to pass. The fraud, the affair, everything. I'm coming to get you. No. I forced myself to sit up straight. Meet me at your house. There's more you need to see. Adriana, you sound. Just come. Please. I dry swallowed my medication and waited 15 minutes for it to kick in. The hospital entrance beckoned, safety, treatment, rest. But Jessica's threats echoed in my head. If I showed any weakness now, she'd use it to discredit everything. By the time I reached their house, 3 cars were in the driveway, Ryan's, Jessica's, and Mark's sleek sports car. I clutched my folder of evidence like a shield and rang the doorbell. Jessica opened the door, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. Ryan's in his office. He won't listen to me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'll double whatever Mark's offering you to walk away. I pushed past her into the house. Ryan sat behind his desk, Mark standing nearby with that same predatory smile. Perfect timing, Mark said. I was just explaining to Ryan about your condition. The paranoid delusions, the financial manipulation. Shut up. Ryan's voice was ice. Adriana, sit down before you fall down. I gripped the back of a chair, fighting another wave of dizziness. The offshore accounts don't exist. Mark pulled out his phone. I just showed Ryan the real transactions. All the money went to your private account. What? I fumbled with my folder, but the papers slipped from my trembling hands, scattering across the floor. When I bent to retrieve them, the room spun violently. See? Jessica rushed to help me up, her touch feeling like poison. She's having another episode. This is why we wanted her to get help. The investigator I managed. He has proof. Called him an hour ago, Mark said smoothly. He denies ever working for you. Says he's never heard of Marcus Reeves. My legs gave out. Ryan caught me before I hit the floor, his face a mask of concern and confusion. Your medication, he said. When did you last take it? Just now. In the car. The room was starting to fade at the edges. Ryan, please. She's been self-medicating, Jessica interjected. The pharmacy called last week about irregular refills. Because you've been stealing them. The words came out slurred. Something was wrong, very wrong. The medication shouldn't be hitting me this hard. I think she mixed up her doses again, Jessica said softly. Should I call an ambulance? No hospital. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. Ryan, look at your email. The proof. Already deleted, Mark said. Your sister's account was compromised. Probably another paranoid episode. Ryan's face swam in and out of focus. What did you do to my medication? I whispered. Jessica gasped in mock horror. Now she's accusing me of tampering with her drugs. Ryan, we can't wait any longer. She needs professional help. Don't. The word barely escaped my lips as darkness crept in. The last thing I saw was Ryan's anguished face as he pulled out his phone to call 911. It's okay, sis, he said, but his voice seemed to come from very far away. We're getting you help. As consciousness slipped away, I heard Jessica's voice, thick with false concern. I'll ride with her to the hospital. You follow in your car. I tried to scream, to warn Ryan, but my body wouldn't respond. They had won. The truth, like my consciousness, was slipping away into darkness. The hospital lights buzzed overhead as consciousness crept back. Through blurred vision, I saw Jessica standing over my bed, adjusting something on my foredrip. Almost had me, she whispered. But in an hour, you'll be in the psychiatric ward, and no one will believe a word you say. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt like lead. On the bedside table, my phone lit up with Ryan's name. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him. Jessica reached for my phone. Just like I've been taking care of Mark. The phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't Ryan's name on the screen. It was the private investigator's evidence delivered to FBI. Moving in now. Jessica's face drained of color. Down the hall, elevator doors dinged. Federal agents. The shout echoed through the corridor. Marcus Reeves, stay where you are. Jessica lunged for the door, but Ryan stepped through first, his face hard with fury. Behind him, agents swarmed the hallway. I got your backup email, he said quietly. The one you sent to my personal account. The one they couldn't delete. Jessica backed away. Ryan, baby, I can explain. Explain what? He held up his phone. The fake investment company? The drugs you've been slipping into Adriana's medication? Or your plans with Mark to empty our accounts and disappear? She's lying. Jessica's voice cracked. She's sick, she needs help. The only sick person here is you. I forced the words out, fighting through the drug-induced haze. Check her purse. Left pocket. Ryan moved faster than Jessica could react. From her designer bag, he pulled out a vial of pills, identical to my prescription, but not mine. You really thought I wouldn't have a backup plan? My voice grew stronger. That I wouldn't send everything to multiple places? I learned from you, Jessica. Always have insurance. Down the hall, we heard Mark shouting as agents led him away in handcuffs. Jessica's carefully constructed mask crumbled. He promised we'd be rich, she whispered. That we'd never have to worry about money again. I just needed Ryan's accounts. You needed a puppet, Ryan cut in. Someone too trusting to see what was right in front of him. Agent Carter? I called out. The FBI agent who'd been waiting quietly by the door stepped forward. The evidence you requested is in my cloud drive. Password is $5, all lowercase. Jessica lunged for the window, but Ryan caught her arm. It's over, Jessica. The game, the lies, all of it. You don't understand, she pleaded. I did it for us. No. Ryan's voice was ice. You did it for yourself. And you nearly destroyed the only person who truly cared about me in the process. Agents moved in, reading Jessica her rights as they cuffed her. She twisted to face me one last time. How? She demanded. How did you know? I met her gaze steadily. Because I'm not just Ryan's sick sister. I'm the person who raised him after our parents died. The person who worked 3 jobs to put him through college. And unlike you, I love him enough to protect him, even if it costs me everything. Take her away, Ryan said quietly. As the agents led Jessica out, he sank into the chair beside my bed. Adriana, I'm so sorry. I should have seen. You saw exactly what she wanted you to see. I reached for his hand. That's what people like her do, they turn love into a weapon. The doctor arrived, checking my vitals and confirming that Jessica's tampering hadn't caused permanent damage. As they wheeled in equipment to flush the drugs from my system, Ryan stayed by my side, his hand tight in mine. No more monthly transfers, I said finally. No more guilt, no more obligation. But your medical bills. I'll figure it out. What matters is that you're free. He squeezed my hand. We both are. Outside the window, we watched as FBI agents led Jessica and Mark to separate cars. Their perfect facade had crumbled, revealing the truth we'd known all along. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't sacrifice, it's having the courage to expose the lies that bind us. The courthouse steps felt steeper than I remembered. Ryan held my elbow as we descended, the autumn wind whipping around us. Jessica's sentencing had taken less than an hour. The judge hadn't appreciated her attempts to manipulate the proceedings. 5 years, Ryan said quietly. Plus restitution. I watched his face, searching for regret or doubt, but found only exhaustion. You didn't have to come today. Yes, I did. He straightened his tie, the one I'd given him for his first job interview. Had to see it through. For both of us. My phone buzzed, test results from my latest medical evaluation. The new treatment was working, slowly but steadily. The tremors had almost disappeared. Miss Matthews? A court clerk hurried down the steps. There's a letter. From the defendant. The envelope felt heavy in my hands. Jessica's perfect handwriting spelled out my name, each letter precise and controlled, even now. Don't open it, Ryan said. She doesn't deserve. I need to. I tucked it into my bag. But not yet. We walked to the parking lot in silence. Ryan's car had a for sale sign in the window, Jessica's Mercedes, the last piece of their shared life to dispose of. The realtor found a buyer for the house, he said. Small family, 2 kids. They'll appreciate it more than we did. And the investment company? FBI seized everything. They're still untangling Mark's web of fraud. He managed a small smile. But they recovered enough to repay most of his victims. Including your medical fund. I stopped walking. Ryan, I told you. It's not from me. It's your money, stolen by them. Taking it back isn't charity, it's justice. At my car, he hesitated. Move in with me. The new apartment has plenty of space, and with your condition. No. I touched his cheek, seeing the boy I'd raised in the man before me. You need to learn who you are without someone depending on you. So do I. His phone chimed, a reminder for his therapy appointment. Another change, another step toward healing. I'll call you tomorrow, he said, then paused. Unless you need space? Space, yes. Distance, never. After he drove away, I sat in my car and opened Jessica's letter. Inside was a single sheet of expensive stationery and a check for $5. Adriana. You won. Not because you were stronger or smarter, but because you understood something I never could. Love isn't a transaction. I thought Ryan was a means to an end. You saw him as someone worth protecting, even at the cost of your own security. I'm not writing to apologize. We both know I'm not sorry for who I am. But I am sorry for underestimating who you are. Keep the $5. Consider it payment for the most valuable lesson I've learned. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply surviving what others intended to destroy you. Jessica. I held the check, remembering that first notification that had started everything. With steady hands, I tore it into tiny pieces and let them scatter in the wind. My phone buzzed again, a message from my doctor about a promising new clinical trial. Below it was a text from Ryan: "Therapy helped. Dinner tomorrow? Your choice, your terms." I started the car, leaving the courthouse and Jessica's final manipulation behind. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, my path was clear. Not because I'd won or lost, but because I'd finally learned the difference between revenge and justice. Justice was exposing the truth. Revenge would have been letting it destroy me. As I drove home, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back wasn't a victim or a victor, she was simply herself, scars and all. And that, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all, surviving not just Jessica's betrayal, but my own fear of standing alone. The $5 notification still sat in my banking app, a reminder of where this all began. I left it there, not as a scar, but as a badge of honor. Some wounds don't need to heal completely to make us stronger.